I started this series of artwork. It wasn't truly meant as a series. I was despondent and broken, and art became a form of communication for me more than ever before. My need to shed the grief and put it somewhere else was so intense, it was less drawing and more a literal pouring of my heart onto the pages of my sketchbooks. I branched out into nature some at my sister's prompting and thought about what the trees must look like if they were in mourning. I drew my sisters and our sister friend as trees protective of me. I tried to draw my emotions as best as I could, and as I progressed mentally and emotionally, I started adding self-portraits into the series. I was feeling very much like I lost myself during the time I spent with this particular therapist, which was ironic because I thought quite inaccurately that I was myself the most there with him. I lost so much time. I lost so much of me. My self-portraits became a way to find that person again, to reclaim myself. I have to study my own photos to find these pieces and put them together again on the path to recovery, but I do it every month. Every month is a little bit better. As I continued, I realized this was a journal. My art reflected the significant ups and downs of my journey. Certain drawings mark important dates. The night I desperately reached out to Rain, even though at the time I felt like a fraud and imposter in the world of abuse still. Everything was so confusing and muddled. They led me to the Tell Network, and the next domino fell. My July portrait I finished and suddenly knew I had drawn what I was wearing and had recognized what had happened as the abuse it is and was. The night I made the decision to report him, I was alone in a cabin in rural Maine, and I fell completely apart just having said the words out loud to my new therapist, trying to draw myself furious but covering it with tears. The night I gave her his name, that night was full of color and forward motion mixed with anxiety, and that was when I drew the phoenix kite. November's poem and drawing I wrote after finally finding an attorney was finding more of my voice. This is an ongoing series, and I'll continue to add months and now years until I find myself again. October and November were better than August and September, but I still have a snow globe in my head. I get shaken up so easily and everything scatters, all my thoughts, and for the first time in my life, I can't fix it easily. I have to wait for the snow to settle before I can take my next step. But I do see the progress in my portraits. My eyes tell me I'm no longer absent. A poem I wrote in November called Spellbreaker. What traps you in that tower is not some crone's curse. She would never do that. But the work of a puny apprentice-level sorcerer, a wannabe, who one day drank the smallest bit of power and thought he was a wizard. He bound you up in iron cords of silence. His magic felt too strong until you discovered he forgot to bind your mouth. So speak, yell, shriek your story if you can until you break the spell. You're battling a 2-bit box of tricks magician who keeps throwing flimsy scarves and scrambling to hide the secret wires behind his hat. And even if your voice is tiny, its force will blast his tower of captivity to rubble, and you will bury him.